At the tail end of last year, Kate and I had the
opportunity
to test drive GM's largest, most inefficient electric vehicle, the GMC Hummer EV pickup. And today we're standing next to its sibling, the Hummer EV SUV. Let's put this monstrosity through its paces and give it our fair, unbiased, honest opinion. We drove the pickup truck last year and we both had quite strong opinions about it.
Yeah, you could say that.
And to be honest, not a lot's changed with this.
No. We want to give this vehicle a fair shake. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I have to say that a lot of my opinions from the pickup carry through to this vehicle.
Right. It's massively heavy.
And you can feel it.
It's got chunky tyres and a wheel combination that is designed for off-roading, but based on my own experiences, and also Michael said the same thing, it's not necessarily the best vehicle off-road. It does have the extract mode, it does have crab mode, it does have all of the features that you might need if you want to take this on an off-roading trail somewhere. But just like the pickup variant, there's a bit in my brain that goes, are you really going to want to take a $90,000+ pickup EV SUV off-roading? Like, most people I know who are interested in off-roading, and this, I should preface, is based on a lot of experience in the UK with green laning. Most people I know who like going off-roading tend to look towards more affordable, more fixable, more user repairable vehicles that they can fix. If they break it on the trail, they can trailer it home and they can fix it for next weekend. That's not possible with this vehicle because everything is electronic. Like, the steering is electronic, it's got rear wheel steer, it's all-wheel drive, so it's got a motor front and rear, which is not necessarily a problem, but if you add in that rear wheel steering, that's an extra set of complexities. You've got the electronically adjustable ride height, which relies on a compressor.
And can I just say something about that? Because the ride height you can change, but you can't do it with the door open, and it doesn't tell you that. It just says it's not available.
Right, and it makes lots of noise at you.
Yeah.
The extract mode, which gives you basically ridiculous, like over a foot of ground clearance. It will only operate if you're in certain modes in the vehicle, like the terrain mode. And even then, it's limited to 12 miles an hour, which is fine. Like, if you're trying to get out of a sticky situation, you're not going to be wanting to drive particularly quickly, and I totally get that.
The question there is there any challenge?
Right.
Like, when you go off-roading, part of it is, can I, with this machine, do this thing? And it's about your own skill. I mean, at least for me, and I've only done it a couple of times, and I've really enjoyed it. But what I really enjoyed is it's about me working out how to do something. And if the vehicle does all that for you, then you're just going for a drive in the country. And that's, I mean, you know, I enjoy a drive in, well, I usually enjoy a drive in the country. But again, like, if you take away the challenge of off-roading, then what is it?
I feel slightly hypocritical talking about a large vehicle because, as many of people watching will gleefully remind us, I own a Ford F-150 Lightning Lariat, extended range. It has a much smaller battery pack. The battery pack on this is about 217 kilowatt hours usable versus the about 120 kilowatt hours practically. So on paper, this is about twice the capacity of my truck, right? It should have twice the range. So my F-150 Lightning EPA range is about 320 miles. Real world, 280-ish if you drive it sensibly. So you'd think that this would be well over, 400, nearly 500, maybe even more. But that's not the case.
The thing about this vehicle is it is so incredibly inefficient and stunningly so. It is unreal to me how much energy it consumes doing nothing. We were sat preparing to film our stand-up, and it was stationary and drawing 10 kilowatts to sit stationary and keep the car warm. And I find that unimaginable.
So right now, granted, we have been driving up into the mountains. We have driven 14 miles and we have used 12.2 kilowatt hours of electricity to drive those 14 miles, which means it is, I think, the most inefficient EV I have driven, even more inefficient, I think, than the Hummer EV pickup. We're driving down this little trail here. It's a really badly kept road, and it's not great road surface, and we're feeling it. It's transferring, even though we have air suspension. It's that kind of, it's not gliding over the road. It's very much
it's remarkably harsh, given how wallowy it is. When you are driving on like a curvy road, you would expect it to be much softer in this environment, but it's not. It's like every bump is transmitted, and that is surprising and not in a particularly good way.
And the visibility is not great. I mean, you might be looking right now and wondering why the camera looks so bad. I can guarantee that Michael has had to apply a butt ton of noise reduction in here because it's really dark in the cabin right now.
It is very dark, and it is remarkably cramped.
And quite noisy as well. We'll come to some motorway driving later on, but it's ridiculously noisy at speed. And because these roof panels are removable, so just like the pickup truck, this panel and these panels at the back can all come out, and there are bags in the front that allow you to store them safely, so you can basically have an open top part to the truck. Because these parts are removable, it's like any off-road vehicle with a removable top. It's quite rattly. There's a lot of rattling. It's kind of like the Bronco has the same kind of problem. It's not necessarily the height of refinement inside, which if it was a $40,000 or a $50,000 vehicle, I might forgive, but one that's 90, 100, or even more, depending on how you spec it, that is ludicrous.
I have to add to that the material that this panel is made from is bendy.
Yes, so it's optionally you can get like a see-through glass roof on it, or you get this, which, and I'm just going to knock it. It reminds me of that plexiglass that they used to give you in shop in the UK, when when they had those acrylic projects where you had to make a keychain out of acrylic, and if you're really lucky, your shop teacher had one of those fancy bending things for acrylic that allowed you to heat it. And then
you
bend
heat it and then bend it. Yeah, I made a case for something out of that.
That's what this reminds me of. It's that same kind of feel, which again doesn't hit the vibe of a high-priced vehicle. And I think that is my biggest bugbear with this. Not even the efficiency, it's the fact that it doesn't feel like a vehicle that I, if I purchased it, would have spent nearly $100,000 on. And if you compare that to the F-150 Lightning, and I am going to make comparisons to that because that's a vehicle I know really well. You sit inside the F-150 Lightning, very little rattles, it feels plush and comfortable, it glides over a lot of those bumps in a much more competent way than this does. And it does feel like it's a vehicle that you've spent a sizable chunk of cash on, but it doesn't feel ridiculously low cost. It feels like the price. And I remember when we rode the Silverado EV earlier this year, we rented one because we couldn't get one from the GM press fleet because GM didn't want to put an entry-level Silverado work truck on its press fleet for some reason. So we rented one when we went to LA. It drove better than this because it had better tyres, it sat lower to the ground, and it didn't have a lot of the faffiness about it. And it didn't have the rear wheel steering either. It was just standard suspension, standard steering, all-wheel drive for the torque. It moved when you needed it to, but it didn't feel ridiculously over the top. Let's talk about visibility.
What visibility?
How would you describe it?
I mean, you have to think about this in a way of, it looks like its ancestors. It is intended to look like the family of vehicles it's come from. And that gives it, frankly, awful visibility. Like, you have a slit, little, thin letterbox windshield. You have massive mirrors to try and make up for the fact that you can't really see anything out of the windows. And then you have this tiny little rear window, which, like a third is taken up with the spare wheel at the back.
Right. We were curious about the visibility of pedestrians. Right now we are in the normal mode. Remember, there is a higher mode that you can actually raise the truck up, and then you can raise it up again. So you've got a suspension setting, there's a dial here. If I press it, you have ride height, normal, then you have increased, and then you have extract. Now, you can't change that ride height with a door open, as you noted. And you can only put it into the extract if you're in the off-road mode. But we did a little bit of a test with Michael earlier. Michael is not particularly short. They're about average height, right?
I think they're around our height.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if they stood right in front of the truck with it in extract mode, you could basically see their head.
Yeah.
To see their whole body, they had to walk 28 feet away from the front of the truck before you could see their whole body. And with it in normal mode, it was like 26 feet, I think.
Yeah. And that's unacceptable to me.
I mean, a small child could literally be in front of this vehicle and you couldn't see it. And, you're talking about the 2-second rule, right?
My mum could stand in front of this vehicle and you would not see her.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so we don't like the height. We don't like the size of it. We don't like the energy efficiency. Charging it up is an interesting experience. This does have the dual layer Ultium battery pack. So it's got a 400, 800 volt switchability in it. So you can use a 400 volt charger. You can also use an 800 volt charger. And it charges pretty briskly. I mean, like, I think 280, 290 kilowatts we saw when we were charging. That's pretty impressive. That's pretty good. But while the charge speed for this is very impressive, the efficiency is terrible compared to the Kia EV9 that just turned off there. And if you compare those two vehicles side by side and you pulled them both in with the same state of charge and you charged them both up at an 800 volt charging station, the Kia EV9 would be done long before this was even halfway finished.
You know what else would happen with the Kia EV9?
What's that?
You could put more things in it.
Oh?
Yeah. I mean, it has more luggage capacity.
Yeah, so this is a 5-seat SUV. It's not a 7-seat. So if you want a 7-seat SUV, you're going to look at the Rivian R1S, which I would argue would be an eminently better choice. This has a luggage capacity with 5 people in it of about 35 cubic feet. This is 35 with all of the seats occupied. The EV9 with 5 seats occupied, so that means with the rear seats folded down, the third row folded down, is about 45. That's 2 regular bales.
Yeah, the back is not capacious, let's say that.
Which is, fair enough.
I mean, it's not really fair enough. Like, the Nero is 16 and the EV9 is, 40-something?
With those rear seats, with the rear seats folded, yeah. So my F-150 Lightning, and I know I keep talking about it, I could have put probably 2 or 3 bales end to end in that. And that would have been fine, but here I put 2 bales side by side, and that's pretty much, maybe I'd stack it 1 or 2 high, maybe 3 high, but then I would lose my rearward visibility, and that would be a problem. Which comes back to, is this actually a practical farm-ish vehicle?
No. I mean, to be honest, if you actually want more load carrying capability, go buy an EV9 and fold the back seats down.
But there is one thing I do like about this.
What's that?
I like the utility of the rear wheel steer. It means that this has a much tighter turning circle than a barge.
Yes. Yeah, I will grant that actually it is quite surprising how maneuverable it is at low speed, although I find the ratio on the steering kind of irritating at low speeds as well.
So GM says that the turning radius of this is about the same as the turning radius on an original Chevrolet Bolt with a B. I wish the steering felt a little bit more connected. It's a problem that I've had again and again and again with this.
Yeah, I mean, you turn and it does things, but the relationship between those things doesn't seem to be terribly connected. I mean, driving down here, I drove more slowly than I would in my Nero because I didn't feel confident about its road positioning, that it would do what I wanted it to, and I had no sense of how it was connected to the road. I had no sense of the grip. It is dead fish territory from the steering wheel.
It really is, and I just realised that the rear wash wipe doesn't work.
I can hear the spray going, so
I can't figure out how it does it. Obviously, crab mode is useful as well in situations where you absolutely need to sneak in and the vehicle's just too big. It really is in party trick territory as far as I'm concerned. And as I noted earlier, the complexity of that extra steering and the complexity of having the air suspension means that you've got a higher risk of damaging something on the trail than if you just had a decent shock absorber and spring arrangement like you might find on
The
lower cost vehicles.
The crab mode is the space pen of writing implements, because you could just use a pencil. But rather than doing that...
That's a really good analogy, right? Thousands of dollars figuring out crab mode, and the Russians took a pencil.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, round town, you can use single pedal mode, and it does work. You've also got the regen on demand pedal, which is something that all of the GM EVs have, and obviously I'm used to it from the Bolt. But, we're doing 40 miles an hour here, and it's noisy.
It's noisy in all circumstances. It's noisy when it's stationary. You hear like motors running, you hear the little air compressors running. And then you get out on a busy road, on a highway, and it just... the thing cuts through air like a brick, because it's basically brick-shaped. And you hear that because all that air impacting the vehicle, it's just loud.
So I put it into cruise control mode. Now we're coming up out of Portland, right? We're going to go through the tunnel. We're sitting at 50 miles an hour. The hands-free system has just kicked in, right? We are stuck behind some slower vehicles, but we're pulling 50, 60, 70 kilowatts going through this tunnel uphill, which was the maximum motor power on your original Mitsubishi i-MiEV.
Yeah. And that thing did 70. In fact, it did more than 70. But generally 70, because it was not the most efficient object. I say that. It was not the most efficient object, but compared to this, God, good grief. I miss the i-MiEV.
It's currently doing... All right, here we go. It's doing 101 kilowatts going up this hill.
Yeah.
And it does have automatic lane change, right? It just did that for me.
It has the Supercruise feature, so it is extremely competent at this sort of thing. And the clash between that and a vehicle which is so grossly unsuited to being on the freeway at speed just because of its noisiness. Not because of anything else. Like, it's fast enough, it can hold the road well enough, it's,
it's faster than the original Humvee.
Yeah. There are many practical reasons why this would be fine on the road. It fast charges extremely well, and it makes you very, very nervous about its Supercruise. But I genuinely can't imagine doing a long journey in this vehicle. And it's the same way that I couldn't with the pickup. Like, driving it from my home to yours on the freeway was a chore.
We're doing 60 miles an hour right now, and I feel like this is not particularly quiet.
It's not quiet. It's not quiet at all. And this is a pretty good road surface, actually, from my memory of driving the Nero up here. And the Nero transmits road noise like crazy.
Look, the technology in this is impressive, but the responsiveness of the in-car technology, not great. You move the drive selector and it clearly reloads it Like, if you've already selected your drive mode, it goes between, and then obviously you go into the off-road mode, and it gives you the watts to freedom and all of that stuff and the stupid noise. If you are in the drive mode selector and you switch, then it's pretty quick. But if you're not in the drive mode selector, there's a pause.
It is very laggy.
And let's talk about the underlying systems. It's got Google-based. It's basically a Google tablet, right? It's running Android.
Yeah, it is clearly running Android.
It's not Android Automotive. It's Android. But the UI. Let's talk about the UI.
I just don't really understand.
It's skeuomorphism.
Yeah, but not done well.
It reminds me of a sketch that a really competent teenager might do for their A-level design project when they don't have access to maybe a computer and they're doing everything in pen and pencil, and that's lovely. But on a vehicle, I question. There are lots of questionings.
I feel like it wants you to feel like it's a game. I just don't really get it. And maybe that's because I'm not the person this is targeted to. Like, the person who finds this fake aluminium strip down the side of the screen endearing in some way.
You don't like the gold effect on the vents?
I do not.
I'm all for technology, right? I love tech. I have a smart home. It's my smart home. I run it on Home Assistant in my own house. I control the security of it. You know, I'm flashing my own smart devices in my home.
You flash your own light switches.
Yes. So I'm not against tech, but I'm against tech for tech's sake. And it feels like this vehicle has so much tech for tech's sake.
Well, you know what it feels like to me. And someone's going to get upset with me, but I'm going to say it anyway. Tech companies and now car companies do like to reinvent things that already exist, but make them worse through technology. This feels like that. This feels like a vehicle where they've gone, we've reinvented the off-road vehicle, and you've just totally missed the point of how it's meant to work.
Yeah, you're supposed to be able to hang out of the side of your off-road vehicle to see if you can see the wheels. I don't think it's possible for me to sit in the driver's seat and look out and see the wheels.
No, I don't think you can. And you can't open the door because it doesn't work when you open the door.
That's what the old Land Rover experience was about. And also, look, let's just talk a second about spotters. If you've got this camera underneath the vehicle, which, by the way, is going to get covered in mud and grime the moment you go off-road.
Yeah, does it have a spray on it?
I
don't know
assume
if it has a spray on it.
I would be
I hope it does.
gobsmacked if it didn't. But
Haven't tested that.
you've got a camera down there, which is vulnerable in the first place, but it eliminates the need for your spotter. This is a vehicle for someone who is more interested in how it looks than anything else. So we made it back to one of our favourite stand-up locations up here in the mountains. We bought the Hummer pickup up here and did some B-roll up here. This is where we filmed the Polestar 2.
Yeah, which did really well coming up here.
In heavy snow coming up here. If you remember that video, it was like huge amounts of snow and we just stood here and filmed. Better, I might add, on the gravel road up here than this monstrosity.
Yeah, it's kind of lucky we weren't on camera for that because the person who was driving, shall I say, was not polite about the performance of the vehicle.
It rattled, it bumped. I mean, to be fair, my F-150 Lightning will rattle and bump, but nothing like this.
Yeah, it's astonishing how poor the ride quality is off-road.
And look, this is the 3X variant, right? So this is the highest spec.
This is the fancy
with the
one.
biggest battery pack and the expletive America body language. And the whole thing is just like, it looks good until... Show everybody the front.
It's bendy plastic. It's just
the
flimsy.
The hooks are good.
Oh yeah, the hooks are fine. But everything around it, the whole thing is just built for looks. The whole thing is entirely about appearing to be something which quite honestly it isn't.
This is building on the Hummer nameplate in that same kind of, you buy this the same way you might buy any other high-end designer thing, whether it's clothes, whether it's electronics, whether it's...
This is for your person who buys the Bose sound system, not because they want something that sounds good, but because they want people to know that they have the Bose sound system.
Yeah. I wish I could find a redeeming feature. This has got power takeoff, right? It's got 110 volts in the back. You're not going to carry a lot of stuff. You can't, it doesn't have 3 rows of seats. Most vehicles this length have 3 rows.
Yeah, I want to say something nice about it. I really do. But I tried. I really genuinely tried to be like, let's give this a go. And it's just not very good at anything.
Well, it's good at being...
It's good at looking like this. That's what it's good at. It looks like this, and that's its entire purpose in life, is to look like this. And who is it for?
Oh, thanks, Kate. If you want a work vehicle, you're not going to be buying this.
If you want a really good off-road vehicle, it's not this.
Right? If you want an adventure off-road vehicle, you're going to be buying the Rivian R1T.
Yeah.
Or the R1S.
Yeah.
If you want a work truck, Silverado EV was exceptional. And it's basically the same vehicle with all the fancy pants poser stuff removed. Or the F-150 Lightning, like a pro version of the F-150 Lightning, which will just every day, all day, just do the stuff. So Michael drove this for 2 days, filmed B-roll, took it up into the mountains, dropped it off at mine on Friday evening, about 9, 10 o'clock in the evening. I put this on a 11.5 kilowatt capable level 2 charger. It got 2 hours, basically, 2.5 hours on Friday. And then on Saturday, it took until lunchtime before it was finished charging. On an 11 kilowatt level 2 charger. Our electricity bill on Saturday was over 300 kilowatt hours.
That's more than I think we use in a month. It's more than I use in more than a month.
On a normal day, I can use somewhere between 50 and 150, depending on whether we're washing or not, depending on whether the solar panels are operating or not. But 300 kilowatt hours, I've never seen anything like it other than when cooking Thanksgiving dinner, which is, just around the corner. And I'm going to give thanks that I can hand this back.
Yeah, I mean, I often, at the end of the day, I hand back the car, hand over the keys, and I get back in my Nero and I'm like, oh yeah, I like this car. And it's funny because the Nero is it is not a fancy car. It now has a bit of a rattle from one of the door panels because I listen to my music quite loud. And I have never been as grateful to get back into the Nero as I am going to be today. And I've been with this car today, and that's it. This is my first impressions of this vehicle.
Well, I mean, coming up here, we used 7 kilowatt hours to get here. For less than that in miles.
Yeah.
So if you want to be a gas guzzler, but rather with electricity, if you want to survive, if you want to survive, okay, you know what I'm going to say. If you want a car for the apocalypse, don't buy this, don't buy a Cybertruck. Buy a Lada.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining me today, and if you've got some thoughts, make sure you leave them in our Discord chat room, our Patreon page, or you can reach out to us on Mastodon. Thanks to the amazing list of people scrolling by on your screen right now. They are some of the more than 1,500 people who help fund this channel through Patreon and YouTube, covering our bills, paying our team, and making sure that we can remain 100% independent. If you'd like to join them and see your name listed here, just follow the links below. There are a range of different tiers that you can sign up for from as little as $1 a month, or if you pay yearly, just over $10 a year. A huge welcome to our newest supporters: Alan Brim, Jim, Sarah Horlock, full name, Todd Johnson, Roderick, Stuart Despain, Rupert Ronson, Larry Phoenix, Darla, Wendy Kelly Bundenbaum, and Kay. To join the list and get your shout out, become a paid Patreon member for your moment of fame. If you'd like to support us with a one-off donation, you'll also find links below to make Ko-fi and Bitcoin donations, and we even have a good old-fashioned PO box you can reach us at, address also linked below. And of course, if you're in need of some swag, you'll find our swag store in the down below. Don't forget that Halloween is coming, and we've got some great designs for the season. We've also got some great content coming up, so make sure you're subscribed on PeerTube or YouTube, and we'll see you soon. We make new videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you want more, the mighty algorithm thinks you'll like this video, but we also think this one is well worth a look. See you soon, and as always, keep evolving!